And this story happened once in a long ago time when all the animal people gathered in the great meadow. Now this was a really long ago time because at that time all of the animals could speak in the same language and they all understood each other. And it was a time before the two-legged people. Now why did they all gather in the great meadow? They gathered not because the siren pushed them there, but they gathered to choose a leader. So they spent quite a bit of time at the beginning of their gathering talking about what makes a good leader. So Buffalo said, oh, a good leader is powerful and strong. And Wolf said, oh, a good leader demands respect. And Horse said, Wolverine, you tell us what a good leader is. Wolverine looked at Horse. Well, I would say, said Wolverine, that a good leader will always have the medicine power of wisdom. So the animals all talked some more about what makes a good leader, and they named many, many attributes of good leadership. Then it came to talking about, well, how can we choose a leader? What would be the best way to choose a leader from among us? And they talked and they talked and they talked, but they couldn't come up with a way of choosing a leader. And the sun was beginning to travel way into the west of the sky, and still they hadn't come up with an idea about how to choose a good leader. Finally, though, there was a very small voice, a tiny, tiny voice, and all the animal people moved aside to let the speaker come into the center of the circle. It was Squirrel, tiny little Squirrel, and Squirrel says, I have an idea for how we can choose a leader. We should have a race. All the animals thought this was a wonderful idea. Horse said, oh, well, I will be the leader because I am so strong and I'm so fleet of foot. Buffalo looked at Horse and said, Horse, I think you think too highly of yourself. No one can outdo my stamina. Cougar said, oh, really? You need to be able to travel with stealth. And to travel in different ways and see things differently. I would be a good leader because I am a stealthy traveler. Wolverine looked at Cougar and said, Cougar, no one travels in a more hidden way than I do. I would be a good leader. So Eagle had heard all of these expressions of clearly candidates for the race, and flew down from the treetops where he had been perched listening to all of this, and went over to the edge of the circle to confer with Bear and Wolf. They talked for a long time, and finally Eagle hopped into the center of the circle and said, there is a lake over here. It's a beautiful lake. I've traveled over it many times, but it's also a very difficult course to run around the lake because the lake is surrounded by hills and forests and rocks. It is very challenging. We will have a race around the lake and it will be 4 times. All the animals concurred. herd. They thought that was a good idea. That would certainly determine who the leader would be. So the eagle said, well, before we start the race, is there anyone else who'd like to participate in the race? To become the leader? And a little voice spoke up, and it was Waboose, the rabbit. I would like to participate, said Waboose. Oh, said Eagle, you're very small. This is a very difficult course. Do you think you could really do it? Oh, yes, I think I would like to try. I have much to learn. I know I'd like to be part of the race. So Eagle said, all right. And they began the race. Well, all of them took off. All 5 of the candidates. And in no time, horse and buffalo had returned. They were the first to come around. They were huffing and puffing a bit, but they went over to the water and in the lake and had a drink. And then Cougar and Wolverine arrived together, and they had a drink, and all 4 of them kind of looked at one another, and didn't look like anybody was ready to drop out. So off they all went again. And they'd been around the circle a second time. And rabbits, Waboose wasn't there. The second time, though, the 4 of them were a lot more worn out. And they kind of eyed one another, but clearly, no, every one of them seemed to still be in the race. So they all went off again. This is the 3rd round. And they'd been an hour out on the 3rd round before Rabbit returned from Rabbit's first round. And Eagle said, oh, Rabbit, you're way far behind. There's no way you can win. Oh, well, I'm going to carry on, said Rabbit, and off she hopped. And when she'd come round, she just looked as bright and bushy-tailed as ever, and off she went. Well, Eagle waited a long time for the first of the contestants to return from the 3rd round. And eventually, Horse came round. Horse was exhausted, all sweaty, very tired, could hardly speak, slumped over to the water and took a drink, took a ragged breath between each sip of water. And then Buffalo came out and was equally exhausted. And Cougar and Wolverine arrived together again. They were eyeing each other warily, but not willing to challenge each other as to whether they would continue. But they went over and started drinking. They were all drinking and resting and trying to catch their breaths. Finally, after some time, Horse decided to step out again and try the course once more. And it wasn't until Horse was out of sight that the rest of the other 3 began to move slowly off they went on their final round of the course. An hour after they'd left, up pops little Waboose, still totally full of energy, calm, bright-eyed, and bushy-tailed. Eagle says, oh my goodness, Waboose, you can't possibly win this race. You should quit. Waboose said, I will not quit. It would be dishonorable not to keep up the challenge of this race. I am going, and I still have a lot to learn, so I'm going to carry on. So off Waboose went. Now on the 3rd round. And it wasn't long before Waboose encountered the Wolverine. And the Wolverine was trying to stay up at the top of a steep incline, but he couldn't get right to the top. And Wabu said, just let go. Just let go and you'll just slide down. I don't want to slide down, said the Wolverine. I want to get over. This is a shorter way to go. I need to catch up. No, just let go and let yourself slide down into the crevasse here with me. And I'll wait till you catch your breath and then we can carry on. You're going to wait, but you won't win the race. Oh, well, I'm going to wait and we'll both go and we'll find another easier way to go. And so when Wolverine had caught his breath, the two of them set off and went on quite a roundabout way. But Wolverine said, gee, it's beautiful in here. I never thought of coming this way. Well, Rabbit said, I'm really glad you're enjoying it. Let's enjoy this time. And so they carried on, and next they found Horse, and Horse was trying to charge through the nettles and the bush, and couldn't get over all the branches. And Wabu said, just calm down a bit and take one branch at a time. If you just take one branch at a time, you will get through all this time. And then we can all carry on. You can join Wolverine and me and we'll carry on. And then Wabu looked at Wolverine and said, you just go step on that branch and hold it down and Horse can get over there. And so then the three of them together worked at it, and eventually Horse got out of the tangle and they carried on. And they went along territory that neither Wolverine nor Horse had ever seen. It was so beautiful. Well, next, they came to a bog, and in the center of the bog, who was in the center of the bog? Who do you think was in the center of the bog? Well, of course, it was Buffalo. And Buffalo was sinking deeper and deeper into the mud at the bottom of the bog, and kept trying harder and harder. And the harder Buffalo tried, the deeper he sank. Down, down. He was way up to his neck in the bog. So, again, Wabu said, Buffalo, calm down. The more you struggle, the deeper you're going to go. You're never going to get out of that hole without help. I don't want help, and I am so angry because Cougar just ran right on by me, and I saw this as a shortcut, and now I'm stuck. Wabu said, well, you're not going to get out unless you let us help you. So Wabu said to Horse, you go over and dig at the root of this fallen tree. Let's get this clear so that we can drag it out to Buffalo and pull him in. And then Wolverine, you get on top of the log and we'll push. So Horse and little Wabus pushed the log out to Buffalo. And Buffalo got hold of it, and then Horse dragged him back out. Well, they all carried on. And then, of course, who had they not met yet? They had not yet met Cougar. Well, they finally came to Cougar, who was just flat out exhausted on a flat rock. I couldn't go a step further. So they all stopped. They waited till Cougar could move. Then they all made their way around the rest of the lake and returned to Eagle. Well, Eagle couldn't believe it. When all of them arrived at the same time, and they were all very happily chatting together, and they were just full of joy. And they all said, no, you know, Rabbit should be the leader. Rabbit knew what to do when each of us was in trouble. Rabbit was very wise and could get us all out of the situations we'd fallen into because we'd let ourselves be carried away by our own folly. Rabbit should be the leader, and Rabbit said, "No, I do not want to be the leader." "Oh, you are very wise," said Eagle. "Well, I don't know if I'm wise or not. All I know is that I am Wabus," said the rabbit. And Eagle said, "Oh no, you're definitely very wise." And they all concurred that really we are all leaders in our own ways at different times, and that we need to be willing to give our leadership skills when they are called for. But that there is no one leader, no king, no one better and above any other, that in the circle of life we are all leaders and all called to share our gifts. And they went to the animal people and they shared all they had learned. And it was decided that people would lead as people